6 o'clock, December 5th, time for Suwannee County Board of County Commissioners' regular scheduled board meeting. Tonight, I've asked Administrator Randy Harris to open it with the invocation and pledge.
Let's pray, please. Father, we praise you and thank you for your mercy, your patience, your guidance, your every provision. We ask you to be with us this evening, give us wisdom and guidance in the responsibility of the county, and help us to best represent the community that we serve. Father, we ask that you bless our personnel that are in uniform throughout the world, our first responders. Just be with them, give them safety, bless them and their families. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Go ahead and give y'all fair warning. If one of these coughing fits jumps on me, I'm going to step out and let the vice chair take over until I can get my breath back. But
You should have warned me first.
we'll hang out. That was
I'm
your
just
warning.
getting over it, so I'm moving.
All right, start off, the first item of business is approval of minutes from the November 29th regular scheduled board meeting. Do I have any changes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second it.
We got a motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming, second by Commissioner Richardson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, moving on to consent agenda. We have items 2 through 6. We're pulling 5 to discuss at a different time. And if anyone has any others that they'd like to pull for discussion, if not, I need a motion to approve 2 through 4 and 6.
Mr. Chairman, can we discuss number 4? Or pull it to be discussed?
Okay. Any others? I need a motion to approve 2, 3, and 6.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Sessions.
Second.
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
Me.
Second by Commissioner Hale. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right. Item number 4, approval of a revised state housing initiative program, local housing assisting the plan, and adoption of enabling resolution. Mr. Hale.
Okay, probably more towards Mr. Pravat. The question is, removing SSI recipient and just falling underneath special needs. Is that sufficient? Is that covering?
What it's going back to is the housing, the Florida Housing Corporation changed the rules on what becomes eligible recipients.
Okay.
And they are going back and then now matching those additional requirements. It's an amendment, which is an additional requirement before, and eliminating, one requirement. So all they're doing is just plain matching the statute.
So what about the next one there? I mean, I understand.
Item
it
number
is-
5, item number 5 is another issue altogether. I've asked it to be pulled for tonight.
Okay.
No discussion, we'll come back with that on another evening.
Any other questions? What's the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Richardson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Sessions. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right. Moving on to item number 7, presentation of commercial insurance refund from the Florida League of Cities for 2016 and 17. Presenting Mr. Harvard.
Chairman
Yes, sir.
and fellow commissioners, thank you again for having me. Tonight, I again bring you some more great news from the FMIT, Florida League of Cities, about your commercial insurance renewals, property, general liability, automobile, inland marine, and workers' compensation of 10/1/17 to 10/1/18. Fortunately for the county, you have heard this presentation several times before, but I think it bears repeating, particularly for the public. And I say that sincerely, particularly for the public, so that they will know the great job you as commissioners continue to do with your insurance program. In the last 9 years, for the policy periods of 10/1/06 to 10/1/15, I have brought you return premium checks in the total amount of $553,928 for those 9 profitable years the league had with its property exposures. The $553,928 represents your pro rata share of $69,500,000 that the league has shared with its members. Tonight I am here again to present you with a return premium check of $38,355 for the profitable year the league had with their property exposure for the 10/1/15 to 10/1/16 year. This is again your pro rata share of $4.5 million return premium in 2017 given back to its members. As I mentioned in the past, this return premium is a percentage based on 2 factors. One, it's calculated on each member's property premium for the 10/1/15 to 16 year. 2, it's given to all FMIT members that again renewed their insurance coverage with the league for the 10/1/17 to 18 policy year. I've mentioned to you in the past that the league is by far the largest writers of municipalities. They write over 600 municipalities in the state. As previously mentioned, FMIT is able to share their profits with their members because they are a nonprofit trust versus for-profit trust or companies. Being a nonprofit trust, FMIT doesn't have to answer to stockholders like dividends. So they are able to share their good profits with their members like you. Yet they are still very financially strong with approximately $200 million in surplus and $470 million in assets, even after distributing these return premiums. Also, their policies include the most comprehensive coverages at the most competitive premiums for municipalities. Again, that is the reason they are the largest writer of municipalities in the state, and that is also the reason I originally and continue to recommend them as your insurance carrier. The league appreciates your business. I, as your local agent, really appreciate your business tremendously. As a result, I take your insurance program very seriously and spend a tremendous amount of time servicing your account. As a person that has been in the insurance business for 43 years, I think your insurance program is one of the most important issues that municipalities face and needs to protect. The county has approximately $89.3 million in value in property and equipment assets, 241 vehicles, and extensive liability exposures. Therefore, your insurance program demands constant attention. In the past, I've worked very closely with Carissa Setzer. Now I'm working with Paula Pennington. Paula is doing a great job and it's a pleasure to work with. It's obvious he doesn't, and also it's a pleasure to work with Mr. Harris, primarily, which I do, through Paula. It's obvious he does an excellent job for the county, as you do as commissioners. Again, as your local agent, I want to thank you for your business. I always have and always will work hard for the county to make sure that your best interest regarding insurance is served. Thank you again for having me.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would also like to thank Mr. Harvard for a job well done, but in the process, I also like to, how many claims have there been, or claims of accidents of there being any throughout the county?
Let me say this. I can't tell you right off the top of my head, but I give Paula, along with, I'm sure she passes on to Mr. Harris. I get what they call loss runs, loss experience period of time that the League of Cities has had y'all apply for all of your coverages. This goes all the way back to 2006. That information is available to y'all, and we actually get that report quarterly. And I look at that extensively. We get actually two separate reports. One that includes your property, liability, automobile, and workers, and the marine. And then I also get a report, separate report for your workers' comp claims. The experience modification, or your experience rating, which is one of the factors that determines your premium, is very, very important. And I can honestly say that there's two things that affect your premium, three things. Number one, obviously, the premiums that the league starts with for property, automobile, whatever. Number two is your experience modification, and that is based on all of your coverage is based on the 3 years prior to your last year. So as an example, it would go from this year, from 2013 to 2016, because they don't have all of the information for the 16 and 17 years. And I can say that, and that is an excellent question that you asked, because I can say, number one, that your loss experience for the last 3 years has been excellent. And as a result, there is credits that develop as a result of your experience mod. In addition, I sent Mr. Harris and Paula an email that I sent to your underwriter telling them back in June, knowing that they were getting ready to start working on your premium, I sent an email back to the underwriter that I worked with very closely with and told him the excellent loss experience that y'all have, and as a result, to do the best and to give the most credits available. Meaning that the third thing is there are subjective credits that the underwriter can apply on his own, like good management, good loss control, so forth. And these are things that he can subjectively do. I work very hard with the underwriter to get as much credit as I can in that respect. So those are the three items that affect your premium. And I can tell you that I have worked with this underwriter for now a number of years. And I will have to say that he complimented me in the last year and really enjoyed working with me. And we have a great relationship. And it's still a people business. So that is an excellent, excellent question. And so those loss runs and that loss information is available all the time. But I can say off the top of my head, the loss experience for the county has been very good the last 3 years.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. And I see these types of money coming back every year. There's got to be some great ratings out there that mean that everything has been going perfect.
It's been going good for y'all, and it also has been, to be honest with you, it's been going good for the League of Cities.
Right.
Because, and it applies to their property exposures. And as a result, we've been fortunate as far as hurricanes is concerned. This year we did have one, but still I think I talked to them and they said that they had done okay as far as the results of that. So, you know, they're doing well too. And that is, again, the reason I mentioned that their financial strength is still very, very strong, and that's very important.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on now to staff reports. Tonight, we have Park and Rec Director, Airport Manager, Greg Scott.
Did you skip number 8?
Yeah, no, number 8 has been pulled.
Okay, thank you.
That is, yep.
8 was pulled.
Yeah, number 8 was pulled, I'm sorry.
Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. And Mr. Chairman, I will not stand close to you. If you could, use to yourself. I'll start with the airport tonight. Just want to let you know that we had no major problems at the airport during Tropical Storm Irma, or Hurricane Irma. We did find out that our generator for the fuel was not operable. The generator itself was working, but it didn't talk to everything it needed to talk to. So DOT is going to fund a new generator and transfer system for that. Good. And look forward to that in probably the next commission meeting to do the agreement for that. We also figured out that if the power went out and you were inside the gates, you could not get outside the gates, which for some folks would be pretty important. But so that'll be worked on the generator system also. We had a pre-construction meeting for our apron expansion the other day, and expect that to start in the next week or so. We also, working with DOT, they're conducting through a engineering firm, a economic impact study for the airport. We're included statewide into that, but look forward to the results of that. We also had the annual fire inspection last week, and we're working to resolve those issues that we found. On programs, we just started basketball season this week or last week. I can't remember when it was, but we just started not long ago. But we ran through the second week of January of those games, and we had more kids than normal. We had 80 kids involved in that program. Soccer registration ended Friday. We expect to be a couple trickle in, but a little over 300 kids will be doing soccer, and practices will start December 11th. Practices start December 11th. Games will start January 6th. We're working on getting close to begin the construction phase of the Unique Abilities Grant for the Sportsplex. That's the $500,000 that we got from the legislature, or the grant program for the legislature funded. We'll be bringing back next meeting several different items for that, but I want to give you the heads up on those. One thing that the material that we want to put down, the turf we want to put down, we can purchase directly from the manufacturer through a program, the National Intergovernmental Purchasing Alliance, which I'll be asking you all next, put an agenda item together to have you all approve us using that as a purchasing authority that we go through. Right now, it's kind of like the joint purchasing alliance that we have now, but we'll be a little bit. We could also tag on another bid, but I think it's cleaner just to go through that process if we can.
That's for the sod?
Right, that's the turf. Right.
What is it that you're putting down? Bermuda?
It'd be artificial turf.
Oh, really?
Right. We think we can stretch it. Talked to Randy about one small job, and I need to talk to him about another, about having the county guys help us scrape off the turf we have now and the clay, stockpile that to the side. We also, and I apologize, I haven't mentioned Randy yet, but probably looking at hauling some rock also, because you put 58 and 57 rock, or 58, 57 and 87 rock, right? Close?
We'll put down whatever the spec calls for.
Okay. But anyway, there'd be quite a bit of loads of that, and be working with Randy on that. And then we also would be bringing to you to work off state contract the playground that we putting in. So in looking at we haven't finalized the sketch yet on the playground, but it'll be pretty impressive. So I'll be really proud of that when we get done. We also, the Coliseum, installed new basketball goals. We now have goals that will actually go all the way straight. They won't be at an angle. When the kids play basketball, it'll be more like you could be playing and not like I would be playing. We also, on the grant we received on the Department of Agriculture for the arena, we'd like to use we need to work with finance to work out details, but we'd like to use the same vendor that put the structure in originally, to make sure that he's familiar with that structure, and it makes some sense. We're talking about that with him, and also we need to follow with finance on that too. But we'll be extending the arena through that grant, next. On the depot, we're working with fire rescue. They have a need to have a larger training area to do the training for their guys. We're looking at working with James and county facilities to do a drop-down screen and some other enhancements so we can use that as training, not just for them, but do that for the public whenever they need to rent it. But excited about that. We've been talking about it for a while, but James has got the money in his budget to do that. I don't want to speak for James, but it'd be a real asset to that facility. Mark has been doing some improvements over there to work on some humidity issues and such, and appreciate his efforts there also. One last thing I just want to mention, this past weekend we had Christmas on the Square, and I was really proud of what I saw in our fire rescue guys. James didn't pay me to say this either, but just they hit the ball out of the park. They did a tremendous job, had a presence. They looked extremely professional, except the guys in the outfits. I'm not sure about that, but kids loved that. They had a couple of characters they had, and certainly James can speak on that. But heard so many comments about fire rescue and also the sheriff's office, how much they stepped up and helped out that event. And it just makes you feel proud to be a county employee whenever you got other folks jumping in and helping out also. But it's a community event, great event, and a real good economic boost to the economy. So just wanted to shout out to James and his crew for what they did. That's all I've got, unless you got any questions.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
have a question. At the John Hill Park,
Right,
construction is going on.
right.
Is that an expansion on the skateboard and the playground equipment?
No, we've got, what we've done is took down the racquetball courts. We had some recreational activities that were not appropriate going on there. So we took that down. It's in really disrepair. We took that down, building a pavilion over there by that. We also are building a new basketball court there next to the skate park. The playground, we just redid that recently through the grant. Also, I should have mentioned this earlier, but Lowe's came to us and wanted to do a project, and so we worked with them, and they did, it's called the Heroes Project. We put in new flooring, new cabinets, and there'll be new appliances, sink and such. So they helped us do. We put in a little bit of resources to that, but mainly it'll be Lowe's and their labor that did the work on that. So it'll be much needed. A lot more work needs to be happening in the bathrooms and that sort of thing we'll address later. Hopefully get some help with the city on that. In the project that the city's doing with housing, they hope and we hope that the what's happening over there, there's about 6.5 acres to the backside of Hill Park that the city has chosen to cut off and give that to the housing authority to look at doing some housing over there. That's when we wanted to move the basketball courts up front so we didn't lose that. The city has given us the property, the old Mr. White's old house that burnt years ago. That property has been in the basketball court. And the housing authority director feels like we can get the successful bidder on the housing to help us with the bathrooms at Hill Park. So we hope to get that done whenever that process works faster. But that's kind of where we are, if that answers your questions. But a lot of improvements, always need to do more. But
Does.
Who was next?
I just wanted to know, when you're doing the airport expansion, are you extending the runway or what? Or
that's the apron.
apron?
In front of the large hangar, the maintenance hangar there would be down in that area. We'll add more box hangars.
I was concerned about length, because the longer it gets, the better, more planes you can keep.
That's in the works, but right now we're getting king ears in, so that's
good.
That's pretty good, but we'd like to get bigger ones.
Right.
But understand we'll never have a international airport. I know Alvin likes to refer it to this international airport
Right.
sometimes, but it's not quite there yet.
Did I hear you say 300 kids signed up for soccer?
Right.
So how many teams is that, you know? And what all facilities are they using during this time?
We use when we designed the sportsplex, we designed it so we could use the outfields for soccer and football.
Okay.
That was 28 years ago. We've evolved since then, so we are talking about where do we put more soccer fields
That's what on my mind.
down the road.
Yeah.
Right now, it's working, but it's like everything else, you'll use it to death, and love it to death if you let it. But we've got a couple ideas. We were planning at Heritage Park years ago, when we wrote that grant originally, there's additional 61 acres that we could have got 20 cents on the dollar matching the grant. But it was chose not to do that at the time, so that went our big plan for soccer and other things down the road. But we got another plan we're working on.
That's great.
But, yeah, space is always a premium.
Participation. Good.
Yeah, soccer's become the
Yeah,
dominant
that's amazing.
sport.
And we have a special for coaches.
I was fixing to tell them, he was bringing it up, that they needed
I'm
some.
glad you mentioned that because you'll make some really good friends out there coaching. So
So what's a goal? 3 points? How does that work?
it can be.
See?
It can be.
I don't know enough about it.
For you, it can be. But anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate your support, and be glad to answer any other questions.
I'll just tell you a quick story. My first year on the board, I coached my little boy's T-ball team. And I learned very quick, if you're going to be in politics, you do not coach sports. That was rough.
So we got 2 teams for the price of 1 today.
I don't understand, but I'm not getting in that.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
It's rough even if you're not a politician.
It was easy to make everybody on our team happy. It was the other team. Moving on to general business.
crazy.
Item number 10, discuss possible board action, reward of request for proposal, and execution of contract for construction of restrooms and pavilions at the Douglas Center. Turn our attention to County Administrator Randy Harris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we finally obtained information on proposals. You've got the information in your packet. We had 2 proposals. Considerable difference between the 2 in price. But even the lowest price that you have exceeds the amount of money that we currently have in our fund balance set aside for the Douglas Center. I want to say for commissioners who haven't been here along with some of the others, that the amount of funding that's sitting there for the Douglas Center is not a part of any type of methodical approach or formula. Some of it was funding that we obtained from insurance claims against damages that occurred over there from vandalism. We would set that money aside in there. Some of the funds that were turned back by the sheriff over 2 or more years, small percentages of that were put in there. Then whatever other funds from time to time that were set aside. So there has never been a methodical approach to trying to match the funds that existed under a line item in the budget called Douglas Center with any actual expenses. And we knew that when we advertised. But I just want to reiterate that for those that may not be aware of that. In any event, we got prices in here, and I broke these out. When we bid or we didn't bid, we actually asked for proposals. And the proposals came back. Your lowest on the restroom was $174,293. The pavilion, and let me just say for those that may not be aware, the restrooms would be constructed on the back end of the gymnasium. They're the same width as the gymnasium. There have never been adequate restroom facilities on that gymnasium. In fact, if you were to build the gymnasium today, you'd never get a permit for it with the limited number of fixtures, toilet and plumbing fixtures that are in there. So this proposal is to build more facilities for male and female people that are using the gymnasium or using the ball fields out there. I think we all recognize that the greatest activities that occur out there are the ones associated with the children, the young people that are out there that live in the community, that are using the facilities on a regular basis, either playing basketball or playing on those fields. But for the larger events that happen a few times a year, it's going to be nice to have restrooms that will accommodate the need that exists out there. The pavilion, the price of the pavilion was separated out. We requested it that way when we advertised the proposals, or four proposals, requested proposals, because of our sensitivity to the fact that it may come in and the expense be greater than the amount of funding that was set aside. In any event, what was not included, and it was done this way intentionally, was the connection to the sewer. We knew that someone was going to have to do that, and we didn't want that to cloud the proposals that came in, because a lot of general contractors not in the business of putting in underground utilities as well. So you've got two figures here that we've provided for information. If you want to move forward on either of these. One was to install a manhole. That number is $37,000. A manhole would accommodate future growth on that property if the board thinks that you're going to have any future growth out there or have any future needs. We did the same thing when we built the state attorney's office on this property next door. We have this space that's available between this building and the stadium. And in the future, if we build offices or anything else, we've already got a manhole that's set at an appropriate depth to accommodate the sewer needs. The less expensive option is to simply put in a container with a pump in it, a small lift station, and pump that sewage around to the front of the gymnasium and pump it into an existing sewer line out there. I used $5,000 as a figure for that, for covering the labor and materials and the electrical that goes with it, potential cutting of some things that might occur between there and the connection point out front. It's very possible that it can be done for $1,500, but if we run into issues when we get out there, I think $5,000 is a good number to use. So at this point, it's just up to the board to decide what you want to do with the information that you've been provided. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chairman, I want to jump on this first because this is something that I brought to the board about the restroom. I know that was that was possible that we could get these restrooms put on. There's several events be out there, and you know the kids are actually suffering when you don't have the facility available. And I think that this project will be good, and you know for the children and for the community. I frequent out there. The last 4 or 5 months, I hadn't been to where that I could just go out there. But you know, like MLK Day, for instance, there were 2,000-3,000 people out there. There's several other events, May Day, car shows, and even doing PAL program, football, basketball games, etc., that could be utilized. Sometimes people may have events out there and just go out. I think it'll be a good project. It is a good project. It is a beginning. It's something that we've been talking about for a couple, 3 years, and I think that it's time. Well, as a matter of fact, it's time that something be done, that the ball start rolling. And you know, if any other commission want to chime in, I got some more things I'd like to say to add to that.
Okay, I got any questions from the board for Mr. Harris or Mr. Fleming?
I don't have any questions. I got something I want to say about it.
Okay, Mr. Hale.
I gave each one of you a copy of this. It was a Douglas Center Housing Development Proposal. I had obviously forgot about this, and I don't know if y'all remembered or have seen it before, but I agree with Mr. Fleming. The bathrooms are in dire straits out there. There's definitely an issue with that. I went last December, I think it was, with Mr. Ford and some of the committee members out there and took a tour of it, and it was inadequate. It really was. So definitely it needs some attention out there. But I wanted to bring this back up because I guess I overlooked it or didn't pay enough attention to it. I hate to say that, but I'd like to discuss this if it's the appropriate time. I mean, have y'all seen this? Have we all looked at this? I mean,
I don't think this has ever been presented to the board for any board discussion. I think I've seen it outside of a board meeting.
okay.
But I believe this is the current project that they've now decided to move to the Hale
The
Park.
Hale Park? Okay.
No, this is completely separate? Okay.
You know what I'm talking about, Mr. Ford? Have you seen this? Okay. So I guess I'm just going to open it up. It seems like it's a decent idea. I guess I'd like to know what the board thinks about it. Also, I'd like to know what Mr. Ford, if you'd like to speak to this. I mean, it's
Robert Ford, 8896 135th Loop, Live Oak, Florida. Good afternoon. I guess you asked me to speak. I guess I'm waiting on the chairman to okay it. Okay.
No, he asked you to go right ahead. I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, this is very, kind of complicated issue to be kind of decided in this kind of forum. You know, last, I think, March, we had a quasi workshop on the Douglas Center in which the alumni presented a proposal, and right after that workshop, some other proposals kind of surfaced that could have been discussed at the workshop. I think this proposal from the Housing Authority sort of came in after that. So with the new information about the costs for the proposals for the restroom, I think it would be wise to kind of have another workshop to discuss all the issues, put everything on the table, where you could have input from all the stakeholders involved, especially the principal Douglas alumni, stakeholders, before we kind of move forward with any kind of final decision in this area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Mr. Richardson.
I think that at this point, you haven't been able to get a hold of Scott Stevens about this, and we don't even know if they're still interested in moving forward. Who knows with it, but I think it's a good idea. I hate to see the land like that just go to waste, but obviously what Mr. Ford said makes sense, that we probably ought to have a discussion about it at least further. Now, I will say, based upon the agenda item number 10, back to it, my concern is primarily for the bathrooms, in that as much vandalism as the buildings have out there, are we going to find the outside bathrooms a problem for, how is it being addressed for safety concerns?
Well,
Mr. Chairman, I can speak to that.
Mr. Harris?
These restrooms would be constructed on the back of the gymnasium and is designed where there are no windows.
Okay.
Biggest problem out there is windows. These kids go out there, and, I don't know how it comes about, but kids are kids.
Yeah.
And without guidance, they're going to do whatever they do. And a lot of them have been prosecuted for vandalizing out there, but I'll just say they go out there and they break the glass, they throw things through the windows, tear the place up. We've boarded up doors, we've boarded up windows, they tear the boards off and continue to vandalize. But having said that, the restrooms are designed where they have no windows, much like the gymnasium, and they share a common wall with the back of the gymnasium. The double doors that are currently on the back end of the gymnasium, because they're fire escapes, the design has double doors then. When you come through those, you would enter a large hallway that has double doors and that go to the exterior. Okay. So they're extended on out to the exterior, but otherwise there aren't windows to break. It would be every bit as secure as the gymnasium is right now in that regard.
So this would be these would be locked facilities when no one's there. They would be unlocked, obviously, when somebody's there. Okay, That's
Just like the gymnasium, it's only unlocked whenever.
I think say they're not outside restrooms that are left open
That's
all
what I
the
was,
time.
that's what I wanted to
Yeah,
clarify.
no, they're not restrooms that would be open all hours.
Right.
Be operated just like the gymnasium with adult supervision.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
thank you, Mr. Harris. Commissioner Richardson, I appreciate you asking that question, but due to the fact that these restrooms, we're asking that they're put on, that there haven't been any vandalism at the gymnasium itself. It was the old dilapidated building that's out
Not the
there.
vandalism that I'm concerned about, it's the getting back into unlocked bathrooms and, and you have activities that are not of legal nature, so we want to make sure that that's occurred.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
That's answered my question.
But I mean, with them being locked and not having 24-hour access, that kind of answers what
Yeah.
you were
Exactly.
asking.
Exactly.
I got that.
So with that being all said, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, and Mr. Ford said that he feels like we need to have another discussion about this. I mean, do we need to
Well,
maybe tie all that into one discussion, one topic, one?
for me, it's two separate discussions. I think the discussion with the housing authority, they've never approached the board. This is something that I think has been floated out there, but over the last year, they've not made contact with myself or Mr. Harris, as I'm aware of, to discuss this project. Even if they decide they want to move forward with it, clearly the gymnasium is not within the plans of what they're doing.
I think that would be more recreation park side of things.
Yeah, so even at that point, the bathrooms, I don't think would be part of the discussion for this part of the project, if that was a scenario the board wished to enter into with them, so.
Mr. Chairman, let me add one more thing, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
We haven't, I don't think we've ever developed a master plan for this, or at least that everyone has signed on for this entire property. And I'm opposed to moving forward on any small piece of anything if we don't have a really good idea about where we're going with this property. And if we're not going to get on the same page with the property, I go back to that same thing that I've said before. We've got to somehow figure out a way to secure those buildings because they're dangerous. And I don't know how to do it, but I just believe that we ought to do something. But I'd rather see a master plan guiding us into different projects until we get this property completed.
Mr.
Well, 1 second. I don't disagree with you that we need a master plan. I think that's pretty evident and has been for a while. But the fact is, on this building, the building's going to be there despite the master plan. This has been the one facility that everybody has agreed, in whatever plan has been submitted, there have been numerous ones thrown out there that the gymnasium is always included in it. So I don't really have a problem looking at improvements to the gymnasium, even though we may not have a master plan for the whole site.
I can understand that. My problem is not with the bathrooms specifically. I probably should have said this earlier. My problem is spending the extra $60,000 for the pavilion, and I'm not exactly sure if that's necessary at this time. We maybe come back and look at it next year.
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
My preference is, this has been going around for 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, and the more that it's prolonged, the more that we're talking about it, the more that it's been discussed, it's going to be, the cans will be kicking down the road. I would like to see some action right now. We got, Commissioner Hale, this is fine. We can bring this back and talk about this at a later time. Our thing is now what Mr. Harris has presented, had put on the agenda for discussion of the restrooms on the back of the gymnasium. That's where my focus is. And outside that, I'm, have no interest in this right at this point. But I feel like that while you're doing the restrooms, we could do the pavilion and get it all done and be through with it. And then you don't have to come back. We got a prize, got a sufficient prize. We have the money in contingency. We get the money for the contingency to continue what we're trying to get done, trying to get accomplished out there at this point right now.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Harris.
I just want to say something I think concur. First of all, I concur with everything that you said. One, clearly, the community out there recognizes that the gymnasium is the centerpiece of that property. The vast majority of that community has zero use for the old school, but they have a lot of use for the gymnasium. It is a recreational facility. The fields accommodate a lot of recreational activities out there. It's been that way for years, long before this commission and the previous commission ever began discussions. And that's why the restrooms are important to accommodate those activities that we know have been occurring and will continue to occur. If in the future there's a housing proposal that comes to fruition, the recreational facilities then become an amenity to that housing complex, because those same children are going to be out there utilizing those, the gymnasium, the fields, and the restroom facilities. I want to share with you a little adage that we used for years when I used to sit in seats similar to these, and we used to study and send staff back and study some more. We called it paralysis by analysis. Now, I say that tongue-in-cheek. I think the housing possibility has merit for many reasons, and I want to speak only briefly to this because I know that you're not going to deal with that issue tonight. If you talk to any professional planners, Mr. Massey was a professional planner, okay? If he was here tonight, you could ask him this question, but the reality is if you look, even if you take this an aerial view of the property or look at the communities that surround us, if a housing proposal were put into play in that vicinity, it would be an infill project. Infill, because it's surrounded by housing right now. And there is a serious deficiency for adequate housing in that community. Just drive through there. So if that were to occur, it would be an infill project. That proposal has merit. I don't know if or when the board will ever discuss that, or if, the persons that put that plan together might want to come and visit with you. But having said that, regardless, this would be an amenity, be available to a housing complex if that were to ever occur, but even now without it, it'd be a huge benefit to the community that lives there that's using this thing.
Any further questions, discussion from the board? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one aspect. I talked to Commissioner Fleming about it the other day. One minor concern that I have with the problem with this project is not with the vandalism, and I think y'all spoke to it very well in terms of the gym itself, which is an active facility. It has almost zero vandalism going on, gym and around in the surrounding area. My concern is that, I don't think this project calls for any kind of AC with the restroom itself. And it will have maybe an unintended consequence in that the gym itself is not air conditioned. And during the summer months, it is extremely hot in there. And they have two big, large exhaust fans on each end. And to make it halfway inhabitable inside, they turn those fans on and they open the doors on the back and on the front, and it gets some real good circulation of air inside to make it, kind of comfortable inside. And my concern is that if you build these restrooms on the back end of the gym, then you won't be able to open up those real doors to allow the air to come in, because the wall structure and things like this. And when the gym was first made, it had these louvers on the side. It's a series on each side of the gym, but those louvers has been deteriorated and rusted and closed for probably a decade or two. So they don't automatically open up when those exhaust fans come on. So, you know, if you build these restrooms and the summertime come, it's going to be stifling inside unless you address some kind of AC or some kind of ventilation by replacing those louvers on the side of the gymnasium. I'm not sure, I know it will be a cost involved that needs to be considered along with this project, is to replace those louvers on the side of the gym, or some kind of way of increasing the air circulation on the inside that gymnasium. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I can speak to the specs that were submitted in the proposal. There is climate control, heat and air for the restrooms. That will not take care of the gymnasium. What I would envision is when there's an actual event where it's needed, that the air is used then. Larger events. But there's nothing saying that the air would have to be operated when the gymnasium is in normal use. If that were to occur, they can still open the double doors on both sides, because when you come through the existing doors that are there today, you would enter in, I think it's 8-foot hallway, and it turns and goes out both ends, because those are fire exits and they're double doors. Then new double doors will be in those locations, so they can still be open and allow for air circulation. In fact, you'd have better circulation if that building had been turned the other way, where your prevailing winds are going from west to east, but it isn't. It's running north and south. So the doors can be opened. The louvers should be fixed. I looked at the louvers as a separate project. Those louvers that are down near the bottom of the gymnasium on both sides that have been capped off now because louvers fell out, those could be repaired and utilized when those fans are turned on in the gymnasium. But that's a separate issue altogether. It has nothing to do with these restrooms.
Yeah, question. I mean, hearing what he just said, and obviously there's a problem with stifling heat, he said, should we, and I don't know what AC would cost for that thing, but should we back off the pavilion spending and look into?
You can't air condition the gymnasium. You don't have insulation.
But you said that the AC was part of this cost
part
for
of the
their
restrooms.
for restrooms.
Restrooms.
Okay.
Well, I can see that.
Okay.
So if you had a large event in the summertime out there, it'd be a good idea to turn the AC on for that purpose. But there's no reason to run that air all the time. You know, if you get a couple thousand people out there, you probably want to run the air. I wouldn't run that thing year-round. There's no reason to do that.
No, there's not.
During summer, you run it.
All right. Any other questions or discussion on any of the items? You got the restrooms, pavilions, then you got either a manhole cover or a lift station. If we were to do it, I'm in favor of the lift station versus the manhole cover. But I think we need to kind of decide that if we're going to discuss doing it or not.
One question, Mr. Chairman, on the lift station versus the manhole cover. Is the lift station a waste of money if we come back later and do the manhole cover, or is it usable? And
Lift station will work fine. I mean, we can design that to work to take care of the restroom.
The only reason you're going to need the manhole cover is you're going to add additional construction, or, I mean.
I'm going to tell you right now, Commissioners, you're not going to remodel that old school, okay? You're not going to spend more than $2 million remodeling something just to bring it up to an old standard that doesn't meet ADA requirements today. Just isn't going to happen. You know, I hate to see that. I hate to sit here and sound very crass about it, but it's just not going to happen. No one has gone out and done a fundraising campaign to raise the millions it would take to redo the school. So, having said that, if the housing complex is a viable option in the future, then certainly they'll have an opportunity to generate the revenues from their sources.
In the manhole cover.
Put in their own manhole to accommodate their needs.
Yes, I'm going to say, we're not responsible for putting in their
So
utilities.
the lift
sure, that's all.
station will take care of us way into the future. You know, it's got a simple pump mechanism. If it goes out, you replace the pump. It's really just a small vault in the ground with a grinder pump and a smaller pipe that pumps around at the front of the facility. So it will work.
We're looking at if we were just to do just the bathrooms and the,
Pavilion.
well, if we just held off on the pavilion based upon other questions, which suggestion that was floated down on the other end by Mr. Hale, was that we'd be looking at $14,293, $14,300 into the contingency fund. And if we go with the pavilion, we're adding another, we'll be at $68,763 into contingency, roughly. Correct?
That's correct. The thing with the reason the pavilion was put on there was as an alternate proposal was when you've got 1,500, 2,000 people out there, limited shade, no picnic tables under cover.
Yeah.
You've got rain clouds coming or incredible heat. The pavilion would be nice to accommodate some of that specific need, but it was listed intentionally as an alternate.
And it has happened a couple of times. Fire rescue was out there several times when they had football games. And it's, like I say, just to see the kids out there and people out there with nowhere to go. You know, the gym is locked. And nothing actually for protection. They ran to cars or ran home. And fire rescue stayed out there 2 different times, 2 different occasions that I've saw, you know. So I think that the pavilion would be viable. I mean, it would be extra, but my desire is to, while we're doing it, let's do it all and be through with it. We don't have to come back and worry about putting the pavilion on. While we had the opportunity to-
what was the size of this pavilion?
It's the same width as the gymnasium and the same width as the restrooms, which is 80-something feet, I believe. I'm going on memory now, 80, 85 feet wide by, it may have been 30 or 40 feet. I can't remember now off the top of my head.
There'll be benches, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, there'll be benches underneath there, you said?
I'd put picnic tables under there.
15 tables.
About 3,000 to 4,000 square feet.
I don't know the square footage, but I think it will be a good project. It will be well worth what we're doing.
No, I'm not questioning that. I was just looking at the dollar amount and wondering to myself if we're better off with one pavilion or taking the approach that maybe we've taken at the First Federal Sports Complex with the smaller pavilions that accommodate different groups. Like if Group A's wanting a birthday party and then you got B's wanting a birthday party, there's multiple pavilions for them to do. And I was just curious if Mr. Scott might have an idea on what the construction costs for those were. And if you know, you can throw it out from back there.
We did it good in-house. Our guys built it, it's about $5,000 or less. It's about a 20 by 30, I think, roughly. Concrete floors, we ordered picnic tables through Pride, and that may be it's a general number, it might be 3,000, but
And what size were they?
I believe it's like a 20 by 30. The same as we built at Hale Park, this standard format we use.
What about the large pavilion at the sports complex?
That's about 110,000 to build that.
110,000.
Yeah, that was,
Rotary Club and city, county, TDC partners on
I
that.
think so. There was a lot of fundraising that went into that one, wasn't there? That's why it's named after the Rotary Club.
I see that size of a pavilion and something that we'd use more for larger events versus the smaller family events and stuff being in the smaller pavilion. And I like the idea of the smaller pavilion, especially if we could do it ourselves. Save us a lot of money.
We can't.
Yeah.
Now, Greg's crew might be able to. But
Normally, this is one of our winter projects.
Loaded up.
This is one of our winter projects when the grass isn't growing as much. So we could put on the schedule for probably next year. But, I mean, we might could get it in, but, and we've had some luck with inmate crews doing some things, but they don't have the pavilions for us. But,
This was drawn onto the back of the restrooms to save space too. Separate, put smaller pavilions in with space between them.
Yeah.
We have, we've got ball fields out there, but they're not very large. And if you spread things out there, you end up taking up the very ball fields that are creating the games that they're trying to utilize.
Well, what I was thinking, and I may be wrong on this, I may be thinking of something else, but didn't we get some grant funding to redo the playground out there?
He just said it was with the.
Scott,
He's got a proposal with no size. Yeah.
Very vague.
Proposal with no size. I got a question.
No, we're going to talk about.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Scott.
Go ahead.
We do have a $50,000 grant. We've got about a year to finish that up. I think I mentioned one time here, once we know what the plan is, we'll know what we can do. And that's, no offense to anybody, but we don't want to make improvements and all of a sudden something changes and it makes more sense to do something different. But
Are we looking at going back and just putting where the current playground is now?
we talked about maybe moving it. We could do it there. That's one option. I know that Mr. Fleming has some concerns about it being on that corner for some safety things. But again, we looked at one plan that we had at one time that when some of the buildings were not there, it may make more sense to put it in a different location. That we kind of held up on that. The other improvements was a smaller pavilion, which would be a smaller pavilion, and then also playground, but also some improvements on the ball fields, which means improvements on the ball fields, because you're going to run out of dollars real quick for $50,000, is probably taking down some of the backstops we have and reconfiguring them with layouts, making them work, but not to build a ball field, but to make ball field improvements. So we might level some things up, put a backstop up. So when we go out there to May Day and other times when we lay out ball fields, we've got something that dimensionally will fit into the space.
Okay. So my question then on that, with if they've got the funding in a year to do it and they're kind of waiting on our plan, not the bathrooms, just talking about the pavilion, would we be maybe a little better off to hold off on the pavilion and work with Greg and let's find out what exactly we need to do or how we want to do it, if we want one big one or multiple small ones? And that, I'm throwing that out there because that is an additional $50,000 that can be utilized to improve it where we could get the biggest bang for our buck.
Throw a monkey wrench into it, and that's why I was being quiet back there. If you go ahead and build a pavilion, we could use the other money for something different. So, and get credit for that, so.
So your 50,000 would go toward the pavilion?
It could, and I think it's listed as picnicking. So it could be picnic tables. We have flexibility in that grant. It doesn't have to be a certain amount. 50,000 total, we could buy one picnic table and cover that element on the grant. Improving a ball field could be a set of bases. I mean, again, when we know what the plan is, then we can massage the numbers to make it work for the whole. But and that's kind of a crazy way to look at it. But sometimes you might throw in a horseshoe pit to give you points to get an element, which you can do pretty cheap.
Yeah.
But same idea. You can massage those numbers around, and you can spend more than 50,000 and get, but you're not going to get anything but 50,000 back from the state.
Right.
Well, my thing would be that we can utilize that 50,000 to incorporate with the large pavilion the proposal that we got here. That's what I would rather go with.
That, you know, if that's the wishes, that would meet, you know, that element of the grant for picnicking, or we could buy the picnic tables, or some of the picnic tables for the pavilion as an option.
I prefer the large pavilion.
Well, I didn't bring the grant into it to eliminate it because I think as far as improving the parks improvements out there was going to be a big benefit to the overall atmosphere. And if we take that away, then you're still going to have the old kind of wore out stuff with the new pavilion.
Yeah, that stuff is pretty much gone. It's just
Yeah.
wore out. It need to come out. That, you know, now I would be afraid when we say vandalism. I would be afraid for some child to actually go out there and get staph infection or something on some of that old equipment. I think some of it has been taken out. That old round thing, I think it's been taken out.
They're on the backside of the gym. Yeah, we've never messed with any of that existing stuff. Probably 25 years ago, we put in that one on the corner where the old pool was. Actually, the city and the county both put together to help us do that. So.
See, when you go with that pavilion and all the restrooms, that stuff would have to be taken out anyway. So
Right.
That would be a good time that it's taken out. And the other stuff on the corner, which I would prefer, you know, for safety, cars coming around that curve, that the playground area would be moved anyway. So while we had the opportunity, I thought we just go with 50,000, add that to what we're trying to get accomplished.
One of the thoughts we had was, you know, when we're doing the ball field, trying to lay out that football field, it's kind of cocked a little bit of an angle. You know, once we know what dirt we have to work with, then we can look at, you know, how do we reposition, you know, backstops and football fields and that kind of stuff to overlay. Now, obviously, it'll be on top of each other. It'll be one sport at a time. But you know, once we know, then we can get smarter on our end.
Cool.
Yeah, Mr. Sessions?
I got two questions. First one's for you. The $5,000 figure that you said for a 600 square foot pavilion, that was y'all doing all the labor? Okay. Because that's $833 a square foot that way. My question to you was, because on this, I can't see any dimensions at all for the $58,000, you know,
I don't
pavilion.
remember the square footage.
Okay.
I've
Is that-
got it on the drawing. I will say this, though. The size pavilion that Greg's talking about building is a whole lot easier to build. The difficulty when you're building something the width of that gymnasium is your trusses have to be broken down into probably 3 pieces and then front and back.
Right, red iron type, right.
You can't haul that down the road.
Because I was thinking that's probably the reason it's so much more expensive is $17 a square foot, so.
Got a lot of
Yeah,
columns, support
85
columns,
by-
headers inside as well.
Right.
That pavilion.
Probably a stronger slab, so. I think, just my part here, I think the bathroom is something we need to do. Go ahead and, it's something we need to address. We need to get it done. And nothing ever gets cheaper. And if we can involve the 50 grand from you guys and get it done, I think we just go ahead and go forward with it and get it over with, because it's just going to cost more if we put it off.
I put Mr. Chairman, put Mr. Gregg on the spot here. I like the idea of possibly having more than one pavilion. You know the property, you know the layout, potential layout. You know more about it than most of it. Do you think having multiple smaller pavilions will be more user-friendly to the people that will be?
With the events you're having now, there's a large group at one time. You're not getting what I've seen, families coming for a picnic. It's usually a big, larger event. Now, when I say that, once you figure out how to handle the buildings, that will change because you may get families to come and engage and be part of that. But when there's large events, a larger pavilion makes more sense because you've got a large, it's a true event, not just, let's have a family reunion or let's have a picnic party or a picnic or a birthday party. Most of ours are used for a family or a couple families to have a small event. What Clyde has been talking about in the past with May Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Celebrations and that sort of thing, and even some of the football games and car shows and everything they've had, there's a large gathering of folks where somebody could create a large event. I know they do some, on Martin Luther King, they do tents and things at the church. Would this be the right location to do that there? It would certainly be an idea.
Well, I would like to add to that, Mr. Scott. This year was the first time that the eating was held there, and you said the tents were set up out there and chairs. There were numerous people out there. I mean, people. And with this event coming, this could house that amount of people that will be sitting, or that some can sit outside extra. As you said, there are some large events that be held at one time at a setting to where the people could sit, have a place to sit.
Right. And I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't get into y'all's stuff, but, when you build a pavilion, you need to follow up pretty quick with a plan, because if you leave things like they are now, it's going to draw negative activity even to a new facility. So it may be secure, the restrooms may be secured, but if you've got negative space, it draws negative activity.
Right.
So I know y'all been kicking the can down the road for a while. Maybe time to fish or cut bait. And
I'm ready.
I will tell you, I need to not tell y'all what to do, but that's where we are today.
Thanks, sir. Any further questions, discussion?
I just got one more thing. I've seen a big pavilion similar to this in Lake City, and with the picnic tables and underneath it, I've seen 4 different birthday parties in the corners of the pavilion going on at the same time, and not really bleeding over into bothering somebody else next to them. If it's a large pavilion, I've seen things like that happen. So it would happen if there was a couple small groups.
I can see that. Mr. Scott brings up a good point, though. If we're going to build a pavilion and start trying to attract outside activity, we need to go ahead and decide what we're going to do with the overall facility there, because if we're enhancing the playground, enhancing different things, and you're wanting to attract the youth to come play to the outside, right across from it, we've got what can become hazards for some of the youth, and we need to come up with a plan pretty quick.
I agree.
To address that.
So Kim, Mr. Kim, I hear what you're saying. Obviously, we pretty much, I think, all agree we need bathrooms.
Y'all want to take it one at a time? If anybody wants to offer a motion for something, we'll entertain it.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a motion that we do it all, pavilion and the restroom.
All right, when you offer that motion, are you including the manhole cover or the lift station?
The lift station.
I got a commotion. I got a motion by Commissioner Fleming to build the restrooms to pavilion and with the option of the lift station. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Is that, I had a question about that. Is that based on the $50,000 grant to be used
Some
for the
portion of it.
pavilion?
I'm not in favor of using the $50,000 grant. I mean, if that's what y'all's wishes are, that's fine, but I don't want to do that.
Well, we're gonna get the rest from contingency?
You'll have to.
Okay. Well, a motion stands.
Second stands.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Fleming, second by Commissioner Session. Any further discussion?
I just simply say that something I'm not comfortable with, and I don't mind the $50,000, but no one wants to use the $50,000. I see Mr. Ford over here shaking his head, and it didn't sound like, Mr. Scott's going to do what we say, but I don't know how much of this $50,000 would be available in this particular situation, so we just can't subtract the whole 50 off of the price, correct? So about how much do you think we could subtract off of it if we did use it? Okay, so it's contingency is what we're looking at.
Yeah.
I want to do the bathrooms, and I have no problem with the bathrooms in the lift station. I just have a little bit of hiccup with the pavilion at this point. Just because we don't have a plan for the property.
Yeah, and I guess I would agree with that. I mean, obviously, I believe we need a pavilion out there. I just don't know if we need one big pavilion, or what are we gonna do with the property?
And I don't disagree with y'all. I mean, I want to do the pavilion, I just don't know. I've got a lot of questions about it.
Well, I also have questions. It's not about, and it is about the property, about what's going to happen to the whole entire center. But we know that the gymnasium is the centerpiece. It is the centerpiece. And the centerpiece is that it needs some proper and some correct bathrooms, and it needs a place that can be utilized. And when we get to the next step, that's where I have the concern what direction that we're going in, whether I'm sitting on the board or whether the next person sitting on the board. I still have a voice of concerns about, for one thing, we know the property is not going anywhere. And if this development proposal were to come in play, you still have a nice gymnasium, you got a nice set of restrooms, and you got the pavilion that can house individuals out there. So none of it's going nowhere. So I can't believe in my mind that it won't happen, it won't be possible. It's just a matter of whether we're going to do it or not. And as Commissioner Sessions said, prices are going up every day. And you come back, the prices done changed, they have went up. I feel like the direction that we're going in is a very great direction, that we have something that can be utilized.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Harris, do you, in your personal opinion, do you believe we're getting a pretty good price discount off that pavilion because of the same contractor doing both work?
I'm confident that he's discounted it because he would be doing all of the work. I don't have any reason to believe that he'll go up on the restrooms if the pavilion isn't done.
Well, he shouldn't. It was billed. It was bid as an option, wasn't it?
It was bid as an alternate. I'm going to tell you, if we had more space out there for the fields, we probably would not have shown the pavilion built onto the back of the gymnasium. It was a matter of trying to keep the improvements compact, recognizing the small area for those fields. When Mr. Scott talks about trying to create some configurations, I mean, you go out there and look at it, those really are small fields that are trying to accommodate large events. Because when they have events out there, I'm telling you, there's a pile of people there trying to get on these fields and have events. So I think it'd be great to have a smaller pavilion out there next to the playground. If the playground were to stay there, how many mothers want to stand out there in the sun and watch the kids play? It'd be nice for them to have some little picnic tables.
And that's why I just want to get the bang for our buck.
If that isn't going to be out there, then, that's another conversation. But the reality is it was designed this way to keep it compact and contiguous. to maximize the amount of area in the field without interfering with that. You know, I think maybe a conversation some other time about the playgrounds and smaller pavilions for that, regardless of this, is something that needs to occur.
Would this be a separate building, or would it be connected with the
It's
bathrooms?
connected. I mean, the roof system is.
All connected with
It's all
everything?
connected.
continuous.
Okay.
And
That
it's
helps
the-
me understand a little bit.
Yeah, and then the
all under
layout
one
of it. Yeah, and then the layout of it is,
The pavilion and
different.
restrooms are
All
designed
right,
to
so-
all be under one
So
roof.
that helps me understand a little bit more.
I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing. Me too.
Mr. Hancock.
This thing has been going on and on and on. Not just this current commission, previous commissions have looked at this. There is still no master plan
Nope.
for this site. Until you have a master plan, because what you're talking about doing now, if you build just the restrooms, you're still going to have to kick in another $15,000 from contingency. If not, then that number's going to go up to about $75,000 when you kick in the pavilion. You don't know what your final use is going to be. Yeah, I think you'd be wasting taxpayer dollars because down the road things change. You want to move a playground. You want to reconfigure fields. You want to do this. You want to do something else. Until you know what that something else is, don't waste the daggum money. When you wouldn't fund the fire trucks, that's still hanging in the air. Put priorities on these things. Because the way this discussion is going is you don't know what, you want to put restrooms out, okay. You want a pavilion, there's a need. We need fire trucks. We still don't have them yet. And that situation is getting worse, and I know that's going to be addressed. But put priorities on this stuff. If you need a workshop, and come up with a master plan, then you know what monies you need, and you can then plan for that. But to do it this way, I think is wrong. Come up with the master plan. Work with Greg. Because if he doesn't know what dirt he's going to be playing in, he doesn't know what he's going to do. He can't tell you what the cost would be or how he can do it. If you need to relocate the playground, he needs to know that. But, I would just urge you just hold off until you can get a master plan. Go back to your workshop theory. That's why you have workshops, where you can have all these different ideas. You come in. Ford, I'm sure, would be more than happy to bring some of the other stakeholders to a workshop, and y'all can sit down and discuss it. And everybody get on the same page instead of trying to piecemeal this thing. I can tell you right now, if you try and piecemeal it, it is not going to work.
I agree.
You're going to spend money foolishly. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I still stand firm on what I said. The motion that I put out there, we're talking and we're kicking against. I'll be there. I have been there, and I know. And we can workshop, and you can come back to another workshop, and you can workshop, and you'll be workshopping until 10 years down the road, and this will not be done. I would like whether it's yay or nay, and I'm done with it. And I think that what we have laid out here with restroom, the pavilion, and the lift station, I think that's a very good project. Mr. Harris have got, and I don't think we can come out nothing no better, because prices go up every day. The other stuff, we're talking about the bathrooms, the pavilion, and the lift station. This is on the gymnasium, not the Douglas Center. This is the gymnasium. And the gymnasium is not going anywhere.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Susan Ford, 8896 135th Loop. I just have one question because this hasn't come up, and I'm not one to get up and talk. But I don't understand why, if we already have bathrooms in the gym, why can't we refurbish those bathrooms instead of building a pavilion? Pavilions is something that we could go to other parks and use. I don't think we need pavilions. So that's just something to think about.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion, and we got a second. Let's vote on it.
Yes, sir. I just got one thing I want to add, Mr. Fleming. I'm not asking you to kick it down the road. I want to do the bathrooms, I really do. And the pavilion, I want to do it. I'm not convinced that we have the right plan in place for it with Mr. Scott, with what we want in the overall thing, and the overall plan of the Douglas Center. So what I'm asking you is, if I'm to call a workshop the first or either the second week of January, for us to come in and let's nail us down an overall plan for the Douglas Center. Let's look at the existing buildings that are there and what we're going to do, and go ahead and decide now. It's because even though we might be doing this, we're still kicking that can down the road, and decide what we want and if that's going to work into this plan, Mr. Scott's plan, and hash it out, because it's a big expense. If we don't have it right, it's going to cost us more money down the road, and that is my only concern with it. I'm prepared to vote to do the bathrooms right now. I just don't, I've got too many unknowns on the pavilion. It's not that I don't want to do it. I got too many questions about it right now. And I don't want to kick it down the road. If 4 weeks, we'll have a workshop as soon as we come back from Christmas. I don't have a problem with it. And let's go ahead and get this whole site on a plan so we can do it. And we'll come in and workshop it all day long until we get it done.
Let's do the restrooms, move forward in the restrooms, and we'll workshop the pavilion, because it's going to bring on an extra dimension. When we workshop this, it's going to bring on an extra dimension. And
I mean, that's my concern, and it seems like I'm hearing that from the other commissioners as well. I'm not trying to put words in their mouth. I think everybody wants to support you and wants to support the project, and it's just the pavilion has got too many unanswered questions for us. And if we can answer the questions on that and go ahead and get us a master plan on whether it's going to be demolition, rehab, whatever it is, we need to move forward on that. And I think that would be, go ahead and pick second week in January, and let's have a workshop on it.
well, let's move on the bathrooms and do the workshop.
Can I get you to amend your motion?
I amend my motion.
Oh, how about withdraw the motion?
Withdraw the motion.
I'll withdraw my second.
Okay.
Now, I'll offer motion that we move forward with the restroom.
And I second.
And that's the
And the lift station.
And the lift station.
Got a motion by Commissioner Fleming to move forward with the restrooms and the lift station. I got a second by Commissioner Sessions. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That being said, Ms. McDonald, can you put together some dates for second week of January for a workshop, and let's see what works for the board?
This be for the pavilion.
Sir?
For the pavilion?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, real
I
quick.
have a trial the second week of January, just to let you know right off the bat.
Do you usually have the workshops?
Y'all require me to be there. Some of them, yes, you say I can go, and
Yes
some of
and
them,
no.
no.
If you have to be out of that one, we'll let you off the hook.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question for Mr.
Yes,
Harris. On the bathrooms, on the construction of the bathrooms, if we are looking at a workshop in January, is there any way that construction can be held a little bit, just to make sure that we have plans, if we do decide to go with that pavilion, that it can be
We actually
included
have
in?
plans.
I mean, what I mean
Plans
is
done.
to be done at one time.
It ain't gonna interfere with
Yeah.
everything.
Okay.
I'd go on with the rest, I mean, the reality is probably not much is gonna occur with restrooms between now and,
I don't figure them to start much until after the holidays.
but it wouldn't interfere with, the pavilion. If the board decided to do the pavilion, it wouldn't make any difference with what they're doing now.
Makes me feel better.
All right, any other questions? Is that it on the Douglas Center? All right, moving on to item number 11, discuss with push board action. Chip and seal on 58th Street due to safety concerns. Randy Harris.
This is a safety concern. I've got a couple of safety projects in my mind right now. One of them I made a phone call about today. I'm more concerned with it because of the issue with DOT and compliance issue. That's the 164th Street Bridge that we're going to have to do something with. But the other is this 58th Street that we've been unable to do much of anything with. We can't go out there and make changes to it because it's an old sand mix road. So it's got a surface on it, but it's an inferior surface with no base. The problem with this section of 58th Street, it runs between 129 and Skeen Road. It's on the north part of the county, in the north part of the county. Has quite a significant curve in it, which has been the scene of accidents. And you can drive out there and you'll see skid marks and people run off the road all the time. In fact, they have to run off the road. If you've got two vehicles on that curve, someone or both of them have to get at least their outside tires on those lanes off of the road. And it doesn't always happen successfully, so they end up running into each other. I have no solution other than to go out there and tear this thing out and widen it, and the cheapest fix would be a chip seal road. Just go in there and chip seal the thing. I don't have any other solution, and I've looked at everything. We put signs up, and then we put more signs up. And the signs are not correcting the problem. We know that we have the width of the road is where the biggest problem is. It's too narrow, and I can't do anything to widen it. So this is a proposal. I ran a complete estimate on everything that it should take to do the project if it were a chip seal project, and it's approximately $86,000. If the board chose to do this project, I would add it to the list of those that you've already approved, which we're still, no pun intended, but we're chipping away at the list. We've got a lot of those roads prepped now in Welborn. We're on 176. Commissioners, I will be bringing an item back on the next agenda for us to go ahead and pay for the sand seal of all of these chip seal roads as we do them, because I'm trying to group enough of these projects, enough miles together to get the company here without hitting us with a charge, additional charges because they're doing smaller distances. So we had discussed that when we got the pricing before. I want to stick with that plan, but we're going to have to sand seal them, so I have to bring you some pricing back on the sand seal of all these other chip seal roads as well. But I don't have a good fix for this one unless we just do it with chip seal. That's why I brought it to you.
What's the total length of this road?
Oh,
About a half.
I believe it was 4,660 feet or something.
It's about 3/4 of a mile.
Okay.
A little bit more.
So you're talking about just doing it to the curve, or is that from 129?
That's to take it from Skeen Road. And see, this is the difficulty. I can't widen the curve and then bring it back down to narrow lanes. That creates a different liability for us. So the road has to be widened, and it needs to go from 129 to Skeen Road. It goes through the curve, and then it's whatever the distance is then back until it hits an intersection with Skeen Road up there.
Okay, I was thinking that road went all the way to 136. It stops at Skeen Road.
Right.
Yeah, it tees into it.
Yeah, and you'd
Yeah,
have to
Skeen
turn
Road's
back
when
to
it
the
goes
left
up.
and
Okay.
then
Tees into
take
it.
another
Okay.
left to get back to 136.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, one
Yes.
question for
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Harris. Mr. Harris, this curve, I know the chip seals, I hear chip seal and curves don't work real well together. You comfortable this is going to be a long-term fix? I know it's better than what's out there now.
What I envision happening one day, sometime in the future, years out, because we are doing the base on these roads that didn't exist under the sand seal scenario. I mean, the sand mix scenario where they just threw some emulsion down there and mixed in with, rototilled it in with sand. Later, somebody can go in and pave these roads. You know, we'll have base in there that never existed before. So at some time in the future, that's what you're going to see on some of these things. And it's going to be on an as-needed basis. That's where your priorities are going to go. But I don't have any problem putting the chip seal on these curves. I mean, we could add the additional expense and do the triple, but I think if we widen it, the biggest problem is the width.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem. So once we put a material in there that we can construct and widen this whole thing, I think we eliminate the problems. And we keep the speed limit low like it is now. But at least they've got sufficient width where two vehicles can, you know, pass each other in opposite directions without ripping the mirrors off of them or crashing.
All right, any further questions or concerns?
I was just going to mention to Commissioner Richardson that there's a couple of curves on the road out there where we're at, and when you bank those curves a little bit, it takes away the centrifugal force, you know, against it, and the way they built the base up, it'll vastly improve how it functions just by building the base up.
Okay.
I'm comfortable that
We had a
it'll
similar
work.
situation on an asphalt road a few years ago. It was on, I'm trying to remember, maybe it was River Road, I think is where, I'm going on
Where
memory.
we went in there and redid that curve?
Yeah, yeah, they kept having.
Matter of fact, somebody put a, I don't know if it's the county or who, put a big 4x8 sign up, said trucks caution curve.
Yeah, we had a lot of problems out there. We had to go out there and we banked that curve some and striped it, made it wider, and I don't remember the total length of it, but we haven't had problems since then. And this one is similar to that. Speeds aren't as high, but it's much narrower.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an old sand mix road. They just sand mixed an old pig trail out there, and now you got cars traveling toward each other. It's a problem, big problem.
Any further questions, any concerns, any comments? All right, what's the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any problem putting it on the list. It'd been nice if it had got on the list during budget time, but better late than never. If it fixes the problem, make our community a little safer.
Is that a motion?
I make a motion that we go ahead and get it done while we're doing all the rest of them, especially.
I second it.
Got a motion by Commissioner Richardson, second by Commissioner Sessions. When we budgeted them, what was the total budget for the chip seal roads? It was what, 400?
I don't remember. I really don't.
That sounds right.
It was 380 or 400. I think say
Somewhere in that range. yeah.
and
Here somewhere, I could probably find it tonight.
well, the reason I say I know it was under 500 because my budget notes, that's what I was prepared to budget this year was 500 for the chip seal roads, and we came in, I want to say about 150 under that.
Yeah, I think so.
So I'm fine with adding it. That kind of fits in with what I had.
You want to spend the rest of it? I got a couple of roads.
We should have brought them. Bring it on.
Bring them up.
I've got one.
Don't spend any more until I come back with your.
Okay.
No,
Your
this,
sand seal, the sand seal of the chip seal roads.
Okay.
That has to go on to protect the base until we get the chip seal.
I'm just saying, it falls in line with where I had originally done my budgeting for when we were in the budget process, so I'm good with it. All right, I got a motion by Commissioner Richardson, second by Commissioner Sessions. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can I ask Mr. Harris a question? With regard to the right-of-way width that's out there that we currently maintain, any potential out there?
I don't see any issues there. I think we maintain enough right away where it shouldn't be any problem.
All right, thank you.
And just for the record, that from contingency, correct?
Right.
Yes.
All right, moving on to item 12, discuss possible board action. Any issues associated with the wastewater plant I-75 and County Road 136?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I don't really have anything I need to discuss right now. I'll just go ahead and let you know now that I'll continue to put this on the agenda until we get through a number of transactions and agreements that need to materialize. I did this previously with the State Attorney's Office until we got pretty much through with the project. I'll probably do the same with this. You'll see it continue to pop up on your agenda, and we may or not have anything to discuss when it does.
All right. Moving on to item 13, additional agenda items. Item number 1, approval of annual support letter for North Florida Economic Development Partnership. I believe this is something we do every year, and I don't think Dr. Jackson's here tonight to present anything about it, but it's standard procedure
I think you sent Mrs. Setzer
Is there anyone that could speak to this?
present this to the board. Is that right, Carissa?
I think she'll stroke out if she walks to the podium. We'll leave her alone.
It's in 13.
No,
This is a repeat of an action the board takes every year,
yeah.
if that helps you.
Move to approve.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Richardson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Sessions. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, number 2, approval resolution and support letter for the rural area of opportunity redesignation request to DEO.
This is, again, just something that needs to be repeated.
Yeah.
We're the ones that benefit, the small rural communities, the ones that benefit the most from this, so I think my recommendation would be to go ahead and approve this one as well.
Motion approved.
A motion is approved by Commissioner Fleming,
Second, sir.
second by Commissioner Hale. Any further discussion? Hear none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, item number 3, approval of lease purchase agreement with Leasing 2, Inc. for 2 ambulances and authorization of county administrator to execute associated documents.
And Mr. Chairman, this would be, again, just sending the county attorney satisfaction with the agreement. I want to emphasize something right now, and in fact, I spoke to Mr. Pravat about this. We are in a unique situation that has occurred since the economic downturn of 2006 and 7. You have vendors that had to get very creative, and businesses that had to get creative as well on in their efforts to sell and/or purchase equipment, because lending had tightened up significantly. Banks were being chastised for poor practices. I think the net result of that is a lot of these very creative lease arrangements now that very often are nothing but finance mechanisms that ultimately end up with the customer owning the equipment at the end. Some of these are designed where you pay your lease payments in accordance with lease terms. If you continue that lease for all of the years associated, you end up owning the equipment. You will see some in other cases where you'll have a balloon payment that the purchaser is offered to make at the end. So you're going to see more of these types of things, but these are finance mechanisms that were created over the last several years. In fact, Mr. Johns and I worked diligently to try to get us into the business of making these smaller annual payments, which we now do with the graders. Some of you may recall, maybe two of you were here at the time, where we used to have to purchase outright all of these graders. And then we got some money back at the tail end when we turned them in and purchased more. But we didn't like having a couple $1 million worth of cash tied up at all times with the vendor. So these are better, much better scenarios than we had before. But this is a request to go ahead and accomplish what we talked about in the workshop. Again, pending Pratt's satisfaction with the agreement. I think he's already taken care of that.
All right, any questions?
Yes, sir. How close were the prices into what was proposed here in budget?
Well, I don't have the exact numbers, but it fits within our budgeted amount. I think hadn't we gotten quotes before we
It
did?
looks to be- 6%. It looks to be the same to me, but.
No, sir, we ordered the trucks to keep from going up the percentage. The only change from budget means was that in the budget, it was a 0.25% increase in the percentage, the interest rate. So this interest rate came in at 2.94, where in budget it was projected at 3.25. So this is after a reduction in interest rate from our budget workshop. So that is the only change from budget workshop to now, is the interest rate.
That's the same thing we did on the dump trucks. If you recall, we know we have to order dump trucks like 6 months in advance or something, so we get those budget numbers. That's what we use going forward in the budget workshops, which fall after we place the order.
All right, any further questions, any concerns? I have a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming, second by Commissioner Richardson. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Moving on, item number 4, discuss possible board action, authorization of county administrator to negotiate with City of Live Oak for potential swap for a dump truck for the city's grade all. Mr. Harris.
Commissioners, some of you may recall numerous conversations regarding the grade all. For those that may not be familiar, grade all is one of our frontline pieces of equipment that we use every single day. It's used for cleaning ditches, swales. It's a unique piece of equipment. We have, I think, 3 older grade alls now. We bought at least one, maybe both of the ones that actually work from an auction. The third one has been cannibalized. We're using parts to keep the other 2 running. And a couple years ago, we started the conversation on this, the City of Live Oak's grade all. They own one that they don't use. It stays parked in their yard all the time. Conversation started a couple of years ago. They have a need of some equipment. When it first started, it was a discussion on taking a grader that we had either leased or purchased and do a swap at that time for a grade all, which did not occur. They decided to go ahead and contract some millings and some other stuff and have them applied to their roads. In any event, they're interested in a dump truck that we had just taken off of lease and sent back to Ring Power. We would have to purchase the dump truck, do the swap on the grade all. Purchase price is a little over $108,000. That's what we would pay. It's a 2-year-old dump truck. And to quench your curiosity on what a new grade all would cost, it's $350,000.
I was thinking we'd give them that Volvo dump truck we got.
That would be nice. That would be nice. But that grade all, we take the thing and check it out real well, but if it checks out well and it's got low hours on it, I'd send men over there to really take it through the, all the exercises to do the best that we can to ensure that it's a good piece of equipment. The only time I've ever seen them use it, they weren't actually using it as a grade all. They were using it to, as a crane to lift something with that boom. And it's good for that too, but we use it for digging, for cleaning swales and ditches. I've never come to the board and asked for the board to agree to purchase a brand new one. That day will come eventually when we, just can't find any more of these older used ones. But this would be an excellent opportunity for us and for the city of Live Oak, but you would have to purchase that dump truck, the buyout on it.
Looking at where are you proposing the money coming from? Is it on that one? I'm looking at the reserve for the equipment replacement. We got almost 400,000 in it. Did we designate anything out of there this year? I don't think we did we?
Boy, I just don't know. Off the top of my head, we spend all that time dealing with those budget workshops, and I can't remember all those line items after that. Which line are you on? What are you looking at?
I'm looking at the
under the board?
Under the board.
I think we covered everything in the workshop, all the equipment based on the leases and everything else. I think that was more like contingency right there.
It says reserve. I think that's what it is, but I wasn't 100%.
I'm not 100% either, but where's Ken? Ken, didn't we put, when we budgeted in the notes in the budget book, when the board by consensus agreed to those and they came back in the notes prior to adoption, weren't those items then increased in the department budgets and covered within the departments?
Yeah, they were. I don't recall anything.
I think this is truly a reserve.
It says reserve equipment replacement, but
we didn't budget anything out of this reserve, to my knowledge. It's all shown in the department.
But unless you know somewhere else, it's either there or contingency.
No, I think this would be a good use for it right now.
I do too. That's what it's there for. All right. Any further questions? I don't have a problem with him negotiating. We're not. You'll still bring it back for the purchase of the dump truck. This is just to go negotiate with him.
That's correct. He wants to go over, their public works director came and visited with me today. In fact, I'd like to tell you a little bit about that visit, if I could, under administrator item. But he wants to go look at this truck tomorrow. I had asked Ring Power to hold on to these trucks, hoping that we could get to this point, because, the other issue with the grader went away a couple of years ago, so I was hoping to get this thing moving along. And we've been attempting for the last several months. But he wants to go look at it tomorrow, the truck. Ring Power had agreed to hold the trucks over there, otherwise they're going to send them on to Jacksonville. So they were holding the trucks, and I spoke to them today, and they said that we could come over tomorrow and take a look at it. Do what? Yeah, he's talking about the reserve under the commission mode, where it would come from.
We've got this, it's not.
Okay. In any event, we'll go look at the truck tomorrow. If they're satisfied and we come up with an agreement, then we'll just come back and bring it back to the board.
You still got the trucks out there, public works,
No, those trucks are actually in Lake City.
Lake City.
Because they delivered the new trucks. We've got the new trucks under the new terms. Those trucks were, the ones that went back to Lake City were from Ring Power.
Do they refurbish those trucks? I mean, go off.
I don't have any idea. I doubt it. They probably take them to auction or either put them on their yards and sell them, some of their various outlets.
Any further questions? I have a motion or any action.
Make a motion.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Hale, second by Commissioner Richardson. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Moving on to item number 5, discuss a possible board action, bid number 2017-16 for knuckle boom trucks. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we were scheduled to open these bids today. And my request is that we return all of the bids to the vendors unopened. What I would like to do is re-advertise and add an alternate, allow vendors to not only bid on outright sale and our purchase, but also allow them to submit proposals on lease and/or lease option to purchase. And I say that because of some of these more recent events, like I just explained earlier. You know, we had got the numbers and we used the numbers in the budget, but I think that there might be a benefit in us opening this up and just kind of do a hybrid where we're doing an outright bid and an RFP at the same time. I think we may benefit in doing so, because otherwise, you know, we're talking about spending over $400,000 out of reserve, and solid waste was where this was coming from. If we can get real good numbers and do a lease instead, we could treat it more like we're treating some of this other equipment, so that we're not exhausting our reserves, because we're going to continue to be in the business.
So you just need a motion to reject all bids, or
Return them unopened to the vendors, and then
And
authorize us
to
to go
rebid.
ahead and re-advertise for bids and proposals that would include purchase, lease, and lease with an option to purchase.
I don't have a problem with that. I have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Got a motion by Commissioner Fleming. Can I consider as a second? Got Mr. Sessions as a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right. That ends the additional agenda items. Just going forward, y'all do me a favor. I've asked y'all before. Y'all have been doing a good job, but try to work on keeping the additional agenda items down to a minimum, please. I've been working really good with y'all, and so tonight's about the exception, so they're pushing the line for me.
We only had a week.
Huh?
We only had a week.
I know. I know. That's why I'm just asking. I know it was a short week because we had the 2 meetings pushed up with each other. That's why I'm not complaining. I'm just reminding. Moving on to item 14, public concerns and comments.
First of all, I got to apologize, and Mr. Pravat didn't jump me. When I was up earlier, I didn't mention my name. I'm Bo Hancock, Wiggins Road. How many of y'all have ever, in a Democrat, read the rants and raves or paid any attention to them?
Try not to pay attention, but probably.
Well, I don't participate. I read them with, a lot of times with a lot of humor. We have a lot of uninformed taxpayers in Suwannee County, if you read all of them. But I'm here to rave. I had an issue that popped up, and I did not contact my commissioner. I just mentioned because I didn't know. Wiggins Road was lime-rocked some years ago, completely. When we bought the property in '92, there was some lime rock there, and over the years, it went away, and the county did come out and rock it, like I say, several years ago. Well, in spots, it was already wearing thin again. So at last meeting, I talked to Mr. Harris and asked him if there was a list. And he says, no, but just give me a call tomorrow and I'll see what I can do. Well, I happen to be sitting back there, and Debbie's sitting there. So I said, I'll just mention it to Debbie. So I did that. This was last Wednesday. Thursday morning, I get a call from the supervisor, Eric. Well, what's your concern, basically? And I told him, and he checked with the regular grader operator, who's also the finished grader operator, and he's out doing chip seal work right now. But he did talk to Gene, and Gene told him where some of the problem areas were on Wiggins Road. Friday morning, they're working. So at least the worst sections of Wiggins is getting some lime rock. That's dadgum good quick response, I believe, to just a taxpayer's concern by the county. And I want to thank everybody involved. We've got some great employees that work for us, and they need to be thanked also. So just thank you.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
I can attest to that really quick. Many times I talk to Miss Debbie, and she'll get Eric involved, and we get things done quicker than I thought they'd get done. And it just, it makes me look good a lot of times, when somebody says I need something done, and I call Miss Debbie, and she gets it done. So I try to thank her as much as I can, but I don't thank her enough. But I appreciate it.
That's just having a paycheck.
Okay. That paycheck comes every 2 weeks. She said, that's thank you.
Hold that one. Yeah.
And working with them 30 years, that helps.
All right,
We're
move.
all gonna retire together, so we got it passed. So I don't know what y'all gonna do.
Gonna be in trouble. Do it.
I've told them all to train their replacements really well.
Good luck on that.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, we'll go to administrator comment.
A couple of things, Mr. Chairman. Your chip seal number that we put in here was $390,000.
I remember it being around 400.
Yeah. So, and I will be bringing back, like I said, the sand and seal number for you later. I want to share with you just briefly, I had a nice visit with the Public Works Director from the City of Live Oak today. We talked about half a dozen different topics. One had a lot to do with utilities, water and sewer. He expressed some options that he thought might be something that we would want to consider regarding water and sewer services being provided by the city. And I shared with him that, if he could get the city council to put a proposal together and get it to me, I would bring it to the Board of County Commissioners. Some of you may be familiar with a recent history where we communicated a proposal for a particular service to the city at their request, and before long it was kind of turned around and some were suggesting that we were trying to take over some services in the city, and that simply wasn't the case. So I did the same thing that I did back then and said, you put a proposal together, bring it to us, and I'll take it to commission. Some of the locations that he had communicated to me, in my opinion, won't work because they're too far from the services that the city has. Sewer, for instance. It simply won't work. You can't run sewer from the interchange by 75 and 136 back to the city. From an engineering standpoint, it won't work. We talked some about water as well. But the big issue for cities and counties is annexation. Historically, the city of Live Oak, just like other cities throughout the state, has used their utility as a tool to try to get property owners and businesses to annex into the city limits so that they can generate ad valorem tax revenue. So I told him to keep that in mind when he talks to the city council, because my preference would be to be in a relationship where the county is simply a wholesale purchaser of utilities, either water or sewer from the city, if we entertain such a thing, so that it's our relationship with the property owner outside the city limits. and we're simply purchasing the service from the city as a customer. And if we could make that make sense, then it might be a viable option for us, depending on the customer's needs and what it would cost to fund the lines that it would take to get it there. So I want to share that with you. I was excited that he came to visit with me. I will tell you that I expressed the ongoing concern that we've shared with the council when the chairman and I were there talking about Perimeter Road, and that is that we can talk about all these other proposals, but some of the primary concerns we have are the ones that are affecting our roads, Duval and Helvinston. I asked him to discuss with the city council, some type of plan for replacing those utilities that are destroying the road, those two roads, because they have to keep cutting through the surface and making repairs. So we had a nice visit. I'm hoping to continue that visit tomorrow when we go look at this truck and bring the proposal back to the board. And it's my hope that for the benefit of everyone in the county and the city, that we can come up with opportunities from time to time where we can partner together on things to generate some benefit to both parties. That's been my hope all along, but hopefully that'll work out in the future.
All right. Yeah, I remember our workshop with them when we had brought up the bulk rate purchasing of the utilities. I hope we can get somewhere with it this time. That's encouraging. Anything else?
No, sir.
All right, moving on to board members. Start down here with Mr. Richardson. You got anything for us?
Mr. Chairman, all I'll have is invite everyone out to the Keeping Christ in Christmas Festival and Parade this Saturday in Brantford. It's always a good opportunity. Churches put together this program and this event, and it'll be a lighted Christmas parade in the evening. And so,
what time is it?
You had to ask me. I know,
kind of important.
In the evening.
At least
they're
I
dark.
think it's at 6 o'clock, but I'll double check that.
Yeah, little carnival's at 10 to 6, and then another 10 to 5, and the parade, up to 5, and the parade to 6.
Okay, thanks, sir.
And that'll be at the Greenway Park.
Take off from the same place? The takeoff start from the same place?
That's a question that I have to find out, because I can find out.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Mr. Fleming?
I have a couple of things. I'm go to the scriptures just for a little bit. The Bible says, "Be careful how you entertain strangers. Could be an angel unaware." We have angels among us, and by way of saying that, I have one of my constituents, one of my neighbors here tonight, and I noticed he sat through the whole meeting tonight. He's a very important person in, I probably would say, the nation. I won't mention anything else. I won't tell what his job was, but it's way out there. I won't share it. I know, and but I want to let you know that I'm glad that you sat through. I'd like to speak with you before you leave. The next things I have is Friday night. Last Friday night, with the Spirit of, well, not Spirit of Suwannee, but Christmas on the Square. Friday night, they were trying to count the people that, not count, but I want to know the exact count, not the exact count, but an estimate. I think Greg, you and the fire chief, y'all played a part into that. Did y'all actually get an estimate of the amount of people that was Friday night?
A good estimate would be a lot.
Now,
it was crowded.
My next thing is that the chief had some guys down there, and I took a picture with one of the guys. He touched me on the shoulder, and I was a little leery when he did that. I said, I jumped, but we did take the picture. How many people probably was there Saturday?
Well, there was 25 to 30.
25, 30,000, you say?
Yeah, they usually estimate 20,000 every year.
And the parade, commissioner session, and I were riding together.
It was
He
the
kept
biggest
telling me,
parade
he said-
I've ever seen.
He said, I can't believe all these people. We were out of candy.
Y'all was stealing my candy.
And
We need the trailer behind the golf cart.
We were out of candy before we got up to Kentucky Fried Chicken, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
we had to strategize, we rode
gave them
together,
your two
so we
bags.
threw out one side and they threw out one side instead of both of us throwing to both sides.
Right,
Couldn't
so
make it, but I did drop off y'all some candy.
we have counsel here, maybe he could, we could put a little kitty together for these things, when these events come, and we have the money that we can buy the candy. I told Commissioner Hill that I do have a Sam's card, and I would go to Sam's and purchase lots of candy
Yeah, we need 50 pounds.
for these events.
I only have candy in my house.
Because, we felt
Eat all the
little mistreated because when we got on the other end, and these kids was asking for candy, and we couldn't give it to them. So we shorted these kids a lot. Okay. Okay, well, that answered that.
That's the official language.
Well, we got the sheriff here, we won't,
I tried to roll most of mine.
you okay with
I
that?
thought I seen candy coming from his cart too.
Yeah. Sheriff, you all right with that?
I run out too. I think I'm a little bit further than you did, but, I got the point, I'm just counting kids, I'm counting candy.
Yeah, there you go.
And these people were stacked. I mean, they were stacked in rows.
I gotta, talking about that, since we're on that subject, is there any way that we can get portable bleachers and set up where like Fred's and Publix is, because people are 20 deep right there?
I mean, it was just people.
No way we can do something like that? Okay.
Probably a huge liability with that.
It was just stacked.
Yeah. There's room there.
Unbelievable.
That's what I mean, it's the parking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Tip, that's all I have. I was just, he and I were talking, and he said, unbelievable. And I'm like, yeah, where all these people, where do they come from? But some of these folk, they come from Columbia County, out of state. They stay for the whole time, the whole duration. So I would say city, county, Greg, you and the chief, y'all keep doing what you're doing, and city do what they do. This is turning into one of the largest events in the area. Mm-hmm. And while we have it going, it can get much larger.
Because I hear you giving away candy.
And the food, I bought a cone.
I had spoken to a couple people, they came from an hour north of Valdosta just for Friday night.
Oh.
75.
I was blown away. I was blown away by how many people were there. I took the kids and they didn't even get to get in the snow. I mean, the line was that long. They opted not to get in it. It was crazy. But I tell you, that's the chamber, and the chamber did an awesome job this year.
Yes.
Their board, Jimmy Norris, they worked this event for months, advertising it. You couldn't turn the TV on, the radio on,
Yeah.
or Facebook without seeing or hearing Jimmy Norris on there talking about Christmas on the Square. And it showed with the partnership with Busy Bee this year and the 30 tons of snow. They did an absolute awesome job. And that's all volunteers coming together to bring in people to Suwannee County and Live Oak to spend money and promote small businesses. And I can tell you, if you went to any of the restaurants Friday night, they were slammed, or at least the one I went to, and
Yeah.
Dairy Queen, they were backed up into the street.
Yeah, they were full of all that.
So
And the
if y'all see any of their board members or see Jimmy, y'all give them a pat on the back. They did a great job this year. Mr. Hill, got anything?
Just to get on the coattails of what we're talking about, that was a fantastic show, and kudos to the chief back there. I didn't know who Chase was, but the kids let me know real quick who Chase is and how important he is to those kids. So that was a home run.
I didn't realize the Paw Patrol had a big following as they did.
It's unreal.
I
It
stood out there
really
and
is.
watched
But
that, and I was like, ooh.
But I did play in the snow, the big pile of it out there, so.
I started to come in the night and tell y'all that's where I caught this cold.
Yeah.
But Mr. Sessions?
Well, I tried to get out all the gridlock as soon as I could and called my wife and asked what she wanted from town, and she told me where she wanted food from, and I said, that's not happening because it took me an hour to get down Pine Street. So I was 9 deep at Crystal's. So that's how, everything was full.
All right. I've just got, well, I had on my list to talk about Christmas on the Square, but we got that took care of. The only other thing I want to bring up is just to make the public aware, maybe other board members aware, that this year, the vacant land agriculture fire assessment came off the tax roll. I've had several complaints over the past week that the $17.92 didn't come off some of the bills. So it just needs to be put out there that if you check your tax bill and it has the vacant land for agricultural, not vacant land residential, it's got to be for ag, that you can call the county office and they'll take a look at your bill, and if it is incorrect, they can issue you a corrected one. If you've already paid it, they'll issue, I believe, a refund on it. This was a large undertaking this year by staff with all the parcels that had to be removed. I believe it was done manually. There's multiple codes with the agricultural parcels. Nothing was done intentional. It was just a human error of having to remove so many different parcels out. So we apologize for any inconvenience, but we are more than happy to make it right if anybody has any issues. Just wanted to put it out there so that everybody knows. And I don't know if y'all have had any complaints or not, but
Actually, I've had 2 calls, yeah.
it's making its rounds at the coffee shops right now, so that's when my phone started blowing up.
Yep.
So I don't know if we need to post something in the paper. I would like to be on the front side of letting people know.
I think that would be a good idea, because like you say, it's making its rounds and it's going to gain.
Yeah, 'cause it by no means was done intentional.
Right.
So I don't have a problem with that. Do you think y'all could put something together?
Put a public notice out there, and those are tiny, but people that follow that, it would cost a fortune to purchase a large ad.
Yeah, well, we can do a public notice and
We can put it out on our website.
notice it on our website.
Please, when you put the notice out there, make sure they know that it was not staff's fault that it happened, because Mandy and Diana's taking too ugly language about this on the phone, and when people come in, they are really nasty.
They are, and it's not their fault.
At all.
I want to say how many parcels there. I want to say how many parcels there are, but I would be guessing at that number, and I don't want to.
Well, she just told me they deleted a stack today like this.
Yeah.
And they're taking abuse for it.
People are upset about it, and I understand the public's perception of it, and that's why I want us to get out in front of it. So I was made aware of it this week, and this is our first public meeting since I've been aware of it. But I did call several of my constituents that I knew were large landowners and asked them to check their different parcels.
Those that are angry, it's the others that are just, they're beyond
And
rude.
the one I talked to today has quite a inventory of different agricultural parcels, and the common denominator that they noticed with some of them was that all the ones that still had it on there had a dwelling on it, as far as a residential dwelling. So I don't know if that may be the common denominator or not, but that was what they noticed when they went through theirs, and they have a pretty good portfolio of land. So.
Very upset. And also, I'd like to mention something Mr. Richardson doesn't mind. The town of Branford has an ordinance. You can't throw candy from a vehicle. You have to have somebody walk beside and throw it from a distance from the vehicle.
Oops. We've already broke the law. We've already broke that law.
You are, because a few years ago, there was a child dart in front of a vehicle that all
I won't mention the one you about to.
Yeah.
There is an ordinance that you cannot.
In that situation, they say hit the brakes.
Okay.
I don't know if a golf cart is considered a vehicle,
Noted.
so to speak.
It is a vehicle.
Yes, it is.
I know.
Hush, Mr. Attorney.
Mr. Summers?
Referencing the agricultural land on the fire assessment, if it has a residential on it and it's listed as a partial with that residential dwelling, then it will have an assessment to it.
Well, it has the $100, but.
It has
that's for the-
$100, but it's how it's listed as a parcel through the property appraiser's office.
Right.
And all those numbers, hours and hours of going through those numbers, trying to separate all that stuff with staff. I mean, they did a great job going through that stuff. But all that information came from the property appraiser's office and how it's coded through their system.
Yeah, I stopped by and looked at their codes. too. I can't remember all of them, but the coding's like 4,600,
Yeah, there's a lot
4,800,
of
4,700, 4,900.
Yeah.
It's just about 10 different codes.
Yeah.
So I can see where looking at paperwork all day long and deleting different codes could, but I understand, but I mean, one that I took a look at was it was an individual, I think they had 60 acres. So for insurance purposes, they had to cut out, I think, 10 acres, or maybe it was 15. Anyway, whatever it was.
For the residential unit.
For the residential.
Mm-hmm.
So their big tract didn't have it, but the house and the 15 or 20 acres that was covered under the insurance had it.
Right.
But it was still all agricultural, other than the 5 acres and the house is residential.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, and it depends on how it came over with the coding.
Yeah.
So if it was, if it wasn't updated, then it would have been billed. But like I said, we knew that there would be a lot this first year that we would have to go back and readdress. So.
Yeah, and it's just the way everything's coded, and
Yes, sir.
I knew that when I brought it up tonight. I didn't want to. I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything
no,
wrong.
no.
It's just.
And I don't think it happened to all, because I did like you, I called some other people that had different parcels, and it's not on theirs.
Yeah, I've talked to several people that it wasn't on.
Right.
And I talked to one guy that has, I don't know, 10 or 15 different parcels, and it was on one of his. Then I talked to another guy that said that he's got, I don't know, 2,000 or 3,000 acres, and he said that he had it on just about every one of his.
Wow.
Well, I looked at one that Miss Diane was working on the other day. Looked like a checkerboard, the way that the lines were drawn, how you could figure it all out. It was amazing to me that somebody could even have a piece of land platted like that.
Yeah.
It was in a small area, and it was just lines back and forth and up and down like it was a checkerboard. And I'm sure that everybody involved really had eye stress from it. I can tell you.
They did. And like I said, it has to be ag, a 5-acre tract with pine trees on it. Because I had that phone call, but it is strictly ag land. I didn't want to get everybody up in arms and calling about vacant land. It's vacant ag land. So that was all that I had. If there's nothing else, I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you all for coming out. Just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Thank you all.